just taking your seated position. And I feel like in an equal kind of partnership here, I feel like we probably all need like a little bit of just whether that becomes a grounding practice or just kind of like settling out of this energy of movement that's happening, I feel like, in our worlds right now. Maybe we're more in our heads and a little bit less in our bodies. Just take the beginning of the practice to really kind of drive into, you know, just settling in, and whether that means being kind of like slouchy slightly with your body, maybe not being as proper or as disciplined, but just allowing, you know, let that space come in here. Let's kind of use this time. And it reminded me, you know, last night I was thinking about how when the busyness and the stirring up, sometimes we lose sight of, and I feel like I have over the past couple of days, like all the blessings that we have, right? They get a little bit lost and we're kind of taken into like the intense or the movement or the productivity. So what can we find as maybe even little blessings this morning? And taking that thought or that concept and really kind of start to reinforce it with some deep, full breaths. And they don't have to have any sort of yogic theory behind them. They can be, you know, somewhat sloppy in nature or less restricted, but just begin to pull those concepts of blessings into like a full and richer experience with our breathing. And just continue to practice into that space. And the more moments we find in practice with these theories and concepts, the more grounded or conditional they become. Good, take a couple more moments here. And then I want you to take your right arm back, let it be straight, keep your left hand on the left knee, and just begin like this gentle kind of movement, right? It's a little bit of a pumping, but I want you to feel softness in it too. So the arm stays straight and it's just a gentle pumping. And begin to bring in a quality of the breath here. So maybe that could be like the presence of the fire breath. So it's a sharper inhale and exhale, which can be done through the nostrils, or you could do the exhale through the mouth. So just an inhale and an exhale. That type of sound, that type of sharpness. And then just kind of begin to slow that motion down. And in the slowing, Take the right hand behind you and then keep the left hand on that left knee. So twist towards the right hand side, feeling more of an opening through the chest, and come back into like that blessing breath that we started with, or the one that has a bit more space of gratitude or awareness into all that like is going right. All that is going well. And to continue as that theory or that concept within the breath, keep opening the chest as well. And maybe that means drawing the shoulder blades together, or even having the hands have a little bit more presence on whatever they're landing on. Good, one more moment here. And then in undoing and releasing, take that right arm back up straight behind you, and then cross it over, a big crossover towards the left knee. And as it crosses over, grip the hand slightly like on the knee, and then draw the belly button back towards the spine, or compress like the abdominals back towards the spine. Chin in towards chest. One more moment. And then draw the body back up to center. And pause. Notice like kind of the variance between your right and your left side. So maybe close your eyes or take a focal point with the eyes open, but just kind of notice like the sensations on right to left. Take a few rounds, like a really deep, full, rich breath, and rich in the experience of what like exists within the inhale, like its kind of beauty, its bounty, natural pauses, and exhale. Good, and then take that left arm out straight. Right hand stays on right knee. I'm gonna go back to a bit more of a subtler fire breath. So sharpness as we kind of like pump the arm back and forward. Slow this down. And then in that slowing, drive that left arm behind you. Right hand stays on right knee, but draw the body towards the left, opening in the chest, and returning to that more kind of joyful, fuller, richer experience with your breathing. Good, one more moment here. And then in that release, left arm comes up straight behind you, comes up towards the ceiling and reaches over towards the right thigh, the right knee. A slight gripping of those straight arms there, and then draw the belly button back towards the spine, chin into chest. Maybe you're hearing Sandy serenading us. That's one of my chickens. And just stay steady with your breathing. Good. Draw this back up to center. Pause for a moment, noticing again bilaterally your right and your left side. And stay kind of joyful, you know, maybe even a slight like smile or softness into the jaw, the eyes, into the facial muscles. And stay kind of joyful with the breath. You know, let it energetically rise and fall. Good. And then from here, and from that kind of like creation of that space, we're going to move back into the sharper fire breath within the movement of it's a Kundalini spinal opener. So the inhale brings you into like a cow-like shape, but within the inhale, I want you to really just feel like the chest opens more. Exhale, think about the belly button driving back towards the spine and the chin kind of rounds in. So you're moving through like a sharper cow and cat-like shape, and we'll go back to that sharper fire breath to meet the movement. So keep the pairing of the breath in the body in kind of creating like a little bit more of like an energetic kind of frenzy, right? There's a little bit of a like an amping up of the volume here. Slow this down. Close the eyes, come into stillness. And notice like all the sensations of that kind of energetic action. It can conjure up, you know, almost like a slight nausea or dizziness, or like an energetic frenzy, right? Channel that back into that more joyful, fuller, richer experience in theory and in form with your breathing. So don't let that loudness, you know, get in your way of returning back into a different, like softer, a different energetic space. Good. And then take that co-creation kind of frenzied energy into that kind of softer space and just twist back off to the right hand side. This time, left hand to right knee, drawing the body around. And notice the increments that you draw the body around. Can you push the boundaries a little bit more? Notice from the base, the spine up through the top of the head. Are there areas like in the hips, in the shoulders, in your cervical, and up towards the neck? You know, can you push into this a little deeper? Utilize that next inhale in coming back to center. Exhale takes you off to the left. And now really work the movement with the breath so that that inhale is the guidance and that exhale is the guidance, with very particular movements with the body. Hold here. Notice any like subtle spaces that you can shift. The base, the spine up through the top of the head in, encouraging a little bit more depth. whether that means lengthening more or deepening in any muscular actions. Good. Utilize the inhale to come back to center. And then exhale, we're going to roll forward up into tabletop. And then if you need a blanket or anything underneath your knees, we're going to come up onto our knees for a little bit of work. So take a blanket if you need it. And I'm going to come sideways if you can. You want to too, that's fine, just so you can see me. Good. So up on the knees. I want you to take that right arm out behind you again. Left hand can come to the top of the left pelvis. Begin that kind of fire breath and a little slight pumping movement, okay? You should have a little bit more rotational kind of reach or twisting reach, right? Because we're not necessarily grounding the pelvis. So notice this through the pelvis too. And then within the sharp breaths. Slow this down. Good, and let it come back to center. Right hand on top of the right pelvis. Curl the back toes. And then take those hands to the back of the pelvis. So you can feel like your bottom and a piece of the SI joint or like the bony structures there. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. And as you squeeze them, notice the lifting of the chest or the opening, the lifting of the sternum, and see if you can just lean back slightly, pressing the front of the pelvis forward. So open, squeeze shoulders, and just press a little bit. Good. Let the gaze look up. Hold into that theory and concept of a more joyful, fuller, richer breath experience here. However that change, translates with this position of the body. Good. One more moment. And then releasing slowly from here. Hands come down to knees, and as they slide, curl the body into your cat-like space. Good. Inhale, rise back up to center. Right hand to the top of the right pelvis, left arm behind you. Back into that kind of swinging, pumping, utilizing the sharpness of the fire breath. Slow this down. Come to stillness, left hand top of the left pelvis, up through the spine, transition those hands back behind you, curl those back toes, back into a bit of a supported back bend here. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. Notice the rising of the sternum. Press the hands on the back of the pelvic area. So it presses the front of the pelvic area forward. Head falls back. And kind of experience richer, more like bountiful breath. Create that. Good. Slowly releasing from here. Hands slide down the legs. Bottom drops down towards heels and then round into your cat-like shape. Good, then releasing from here, bottom on the heels. You can make the feet flat. Curl up tall with the spine. Tuck the pelvis slightly, grab any support that you need. Take a focal point and begin some discipline work with your Ujjayi Pranayama. So keep the spine lengthening. Again, maybe a slight tuck of the tailbone. If that positions you, taking some of the lower back arching out, especially after a back bend. Keep the chin in towards the neck. Double chin, an avoidance, I feel like, by many women, myself included, but feel that kind of chin in towards the neck slightly. And then the discipline part of the practice is inhales and exhales through the nostril, working towards that guttural kind of restriction and auditory response in the back of the throat. Good, a couple more moments here. And then in the releasing of the Ujjayi practice, take the hands behind you, open up into a back bend shape. So chest opens, shoulders squeeze, and press the belly forward. Release the Ujjayi practice and come into the theory or concept of like a fuller, richer, more like freedom kind of experiencing breath practice. Good, one more moment. And then transitioning from here into a wide-legged child's pose. You can keep the blanket or you can move it. And in the wide-legged child's pose, take a few rounds of a natural breath as the body settles, and then move into the more disciplined space with the Ujjayi practice. And as you begin to increase the disciplined space of the Ujjayi practice, I want you to work with the bandha, Uddiyana bandha, which sits above the navel, and you feel that it's called flying up, or that's what it translates to. So it's not just a sucking back of the space above the belly button, but it's a sucking back and it kind of flies up underneath the ribs. And so that muscular action, it's one reason I love bandhas, is helping the placement of the ribs, and it's controlling the breath, predominantly utilizing like just the lung capacity. So that area is basically where the diaphragm is becoming a muscular action rather than a breathing mechanism. So it's using to control the energetics and the physicality and the breath, but I want you to feel the Ujjayi practice in direct connection to that physical space of the bandha. So above the belly button, kind of draws back and tucks it up underneath the ribs. And so the breath practice can still stay full and rich. It may feel slightly restricted, but see if you can get the growth of it to kind of come through the sides of the body. So expanding more of the width than like the front to back length. And just play with that. And then continue to play with that as you walk both hands off to the right hand side, left hand on top of right hand. And maybe you notice that width a little restricted on the right side, but more expansive on the left side. And this is just because of the placement of the physical body. Good, same thing. Walk the hands off over towards the left-hand side. Right hand on top of left. Placement of the body has changed. Look at the capacity of the Ujjayi breath in that kind of restrictive area of our bandha, but there's still the ability for expansion. And maybe again, in parallels of right and left-hand sides, you notice the right-hand side has the capability of more width or a different level of lung capacity. Good, one more round with your breath. Come back more central. Let go of your Ujjayi practice and just let that natural or more kind of joyful breath like fill in. Good, one more moment here. And then we'll transition to our first downward dog. And in that transitioning, the Ujjayi practice is going to kind of come back into play. Keep that tailbone rising. Keep whatever amount of presence, with the hand and the solid surface. Head is softer, jaw. Thigh bones press back in the action of straightening the legs and the thought of dropping the heels down. As you're holding here, widen the feet. So one foot is at one edge of the mat and the other is the other. And then just take your left hand and reach it to the right ankle. And see if you can kind of twist the body to look out over towards the right hand side. The gaze will kind of look underneath the armpit or underneath that right arm. Hold for one more breath. Good, and then take that back out. Pause one moment. And then take the right hand, the outside of the left foot. Same thing, twist the body. It doesn't have to be some intense experience, but just draw around into that. Hold for a few moments. Release it. We're going to walk our hands back towards our feet this time. So you're in your forward fold, back of the mat with your feet wide. Bend in the knees. Stick your bottom back as you bend in the knees. And take the hands right to the top of the lower thigh. Yep, and keep the elbows tucked in at your side. And then let the elbows kind of come out. And notice as this movement of kind of drawing the elbows in and drawing the out, let the hands shift within this movement too. But keep the legs kind of rallying. So in and out with the elbows, shoulders draw back, they release forward, and the hands kind of pivot on the knees. Good. Do 2 more in each direction. And then keep this deep bend and your bottom sticking back, but let the lower back hang through and wrap the arms around the outer ankles. And really kind of use that, hand placement and the gripping and like a slight gripping to draw the body down. And as you draw the body down, I want you to just begin to shift into one knee and then the other knee. And you should feel this shifting not only through the back and the pelvis, but also through the shoulders. Good. Release from that with the hands out in front of you. And then walk the hands forward to come into a high plank. Draw the feet together. Use the space of energetic exertion. Use as much of your energy as you can here in holding. Good. Drop the knees, tabletop, few rounds of cow and cat. And use cat as that space, or cow and cat as that space of rest. So how are you going to breathe here? How are you going to keep yoking into the practice these theories and concepts beyond the body and the physical movement? Feel like a fuller, richer experience. Maybe it slows down, maybe it moves a little quicker. Good, let's take one more in each direction. And then in that more neutral space, curl your back toes, come back up on your knees, grab your blanket if you need it. And you're going to inhale your right arm up and around to the back so it hits the back of the pelvis. Same thing, left arm up, around to the back so it hits the back of the pelvis. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. Notice as you do, the sternum rises, let the head begin to fall back and press the pelvis forward. You can stay here if you want to drop one hand down towards a heel, coming into a half camel or Ustrasana. Or you can even extend that if you want to release the other hand back. Or you can stay right here. Here, here. Hold. And within whatever physical sensations are present, find a more kind of joyful breath practice here. One more moment. Then coming up, hands slide down to the knees, round through into cat, and do that slowly. Release from this, walking the hands forward into plank. Abdominal engagement. Legs are really supportive and strong. This will help in reversing also any back bend, creaks or grievances. The returning to strengthening the other spaces. Hold one more breath. Drop down into tabletop, cow and cat, as like a joyful returning or kind of a release into a more restful movement. Good, one more round in each direction. Flat back. Pressing in, curling the back toes, down dog. In down dog. Come back to your Ujjayi practice. Hold for 2 more breaths. And then in your third breath, within the inhale, your Ujjayi inhale, feet walk towards hands. Exhale into the forward fold. Keep the Ujjayi practice going. Let that very direct, disciplined nature with or without that bandha, let its presence hold you there. And then within the next inhale, rise all the way up to standing, arms up overhead. Exhale, interlace the fingertips, press the palms up towards the ceiling. Take a slight bend in the knees and see if you can take some circular movements with the torso here. Kind of inhaling and exhaling. Maybe you feel some elements of cow and cat. Maybe any grievances within the lower back, if they're still present from any of the back bend work, just kind of like work into the circular movement, kicking out any of the kinks. And really be full and rich with your breath from here. So move away from that, directness of the Ujjayi and feel the movement kind of equate with your breathing, equalize with the breathing. And then just reverse that direction. Good, and then finish that movement. Arms come down by your side. Roll the shoulders onto the back. Come into a very much stricter structure. Feet can be wide or together. Legs are really solid, and keep that rising up back to that bandha space above the navel. You may feel more of that flying up action here. So it's not just back in, there's a that, and then a tucking up, which is holding the rib cage, almost like on a shelf. And hold here with your Ujjayi breath practice. Good. Let this breath begin to be the metronome, like for the movement, like it's defining the pace. We're going to go through 2 rounds of sun cells. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, little back bend. Inhale, back up to center. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, plant the hands, step back into plank. Hold and hover here with your breath. Drop the knees. Inhale, exhale, lower. Slide flat. Inhale, Ujjayi Cobra. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, down dog. Inhale, feet return to the front of your mat. Body comes into half forward fold. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise. Exhale, little back bend. Inhale, back to center. Exhale, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, plant the hands, step back into plank. Hold. Drop the knees. Inhale, exhale, lower. Flat on the belly. Inhale, shoulders roll onto back, cobra. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, feet come to the front of the mat. Body comes into half forward fold. Exhale into the forward fold. Inhale, breath and body rise. And within this exhale, see if you can really send the spine up and then back. Press the pelvis slightly forward. Arms are straight. Let go of that Ujjayi practice and hold just into a fuller breath for a few moments. Inhale, come back up to center. Exhale, interlace the fingertips, press those palms forward, drop in the knees, and draw the belly button back towards the spine. Good, rise, arms up overhead. Release off over to the right-hand side. Rise back up. Exhale, release off over to the left. Inhale back up. Exhale, arms down by your side. Roll the shoulders onto the back and pause. Work very directly with the Ujjayi practice. And allow it to be enough to let you sustain here. Good, letting go from that kind of disciplined practice. Let the body release into it. And then we're just gonna take some gentle, like movement of twisting side to side. And as you twist, I want your arms to be free of any like hindrance, whether that's physically or mentally, and let it tap out on your body. Notice like lower tapping, upper tapping. And maybe you want to bring in a fire breath here. If not, you can just play with kind of letting it be more natural, or you could bring into a, you know, I like a slower fire breath if I decide to do it. Good, and just let that all kind of settle back into center. And then just hang in stillness. And I mean hang, like don't worry if it feels slightly sloppy, even in the upper body. Legs are still, you know, active on some level. See if you can just hang here and taking some inhales and exhales out the mouth. Maybe a few times. And then just pause. And pause back into, you know, kind of where we began. Drawing our awareness to all that we have. And maybe beginning, you know, conditioning the rewiring of the brain, because this is an actual practice, into seeing everything that's going right. Because our brain's job is to see and sense, you know, stuff that's going wrong in order to keep us alive. Good, and kind of from this reminder, let's drop down into a wide-legged child's pose. And just kind of stay full and rich into that placement. And then thread right arm underneath left arm. And now switch that. So left arm underneath right. And then coming back out through center and just rising into a seated position of your choice. And we'll use our inhale again to really engage kind of with the structure that we want to create within the spinal column, pelvic. And then use the exhale also to divine like what we don't want structurally engaged. And then we'll just begin some movement with the head and neck, which can be any kind of circular side to side motion. And in this movement, again, kind of redefining back into that joyful, like more freedom-like breath metronome. And then pausing and reversing that direction whenever, you feel you need to. Good, and then having that return back with the head, situated on top of the spine. We'll take that right arm behind us and just begin that kind of gentle movement back and forth. Good, and then let that hand kind of rest down on the right knee and just take a couple rolls with that shoulder. Good, and then placing that down, then we'll repeat that same thing with the left side. So just an opening back and forward, like a slight pumping. And then finishing that movement with the hand, coming down to the knee, and then any circular rotation, whether you keep the elbow bent or the arm straight. Good, and then left hand to left knee. We'll take some circular rotations with the torso. And just pausing and reversing that direction whenever you need. Good, and letting this movement settle into stillness. And we'll come lastly into some of the sharper movement of the Kundalini spine opener within the inhale and then the exhale, okay? So create a little bit of, energetic and physical frenzy here, as much as you can stand. Slow it down. And then send that potential energy right into the seat of stillness and meditation. And channel any of that into a more kind of joyful, steadier, like full of bounty and blessings type of space. take the chin into the chest, just kind of taking the head or the gaze down to the heart center, the sternum, our ability to see, feel, and receive and give blessings. And to see, feel, and give an understanding of the rewiring or the restructure. You know, it's kind of always at our fingertips. And I hope we can carry through and forward some of this as our bodies meet, you know, our worlds today. So thank you for practicing. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you soon.